My name is Gregory DeCandia. I'm the Artistic Director of DreamWrights Center for Community Arts, and I'm very happy to continue the Community Conversation series. This is a series that we started back last November with our first LGBTQIA title of Next Fall, and it's a way for us to be able to engage with the community and community leaders regarding the different themes and challenging subject matters that we have put forth on our stage. And the next show that we have has a whole laundry list of very challenging material on it, and that is Spring Awakening, the Tony Award-winning show. Perhaps you may have seen the HBO documentary that was just released last May, earlier in the month, about the show in their 15th anniversary season. It was very controversial when it went on stage, having young people depicting scenes of homosexuality. There's also sexual violence. There's violence on stage. There's suicide on stage. And before I even said any of this, spoiler alert, we'll be talking about a lot of the plot points as a part of this show to be able to give you the resources to be able to better equip yourself to be able to see this show and to be able to enjoy your summer and to be able to tackle some of these very challenging themes that we know students are dealing with every single day. So before we even get started in the conversation, I have the honor and the privilege to be able to have a wonderful panel of community leaders that are doing such wonderful work in the community that we want to be able to give them this moment to be able to say their name and where their organization that they're working with or what they do.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Drayden. I am the Youth Education Director here at the Crispus Rising Stars program. Crispus is a community center charter school. We have a myriad of different programming for intergenerational. We have active living centers. We have early learning center. But my particular role as the Rising Stars Youth Education Director is to provide opportunities for youth to engage with educational programming. And basically my actual base is STEM, but I'm really excited. I'm actually learning and developing the arts program. And so what we are intending of doing is capturing the same type of energy that was kind of on display there during the COVID time as far as with the social justice. So we're really kind of moving forward with making sure the youth actually express their voice and their insight. I think that's very key in order for us all to move forward. So we actually have peer-to-peer mentorship programs designed with the YCOS, York College Economical Scholarship Program. And so we're actually, like I said, want to tap into the youth voice, get them involved in more of the arts. And so I'm kind of somewhat maybe of a novice on that particular subject, but I definitely feel the passion that Gregory and we have had some wonderful conversations. I think this is very necessary. And so getting them involved in the arts and in the subject matter with the Spring Awakening, I think is something very impertinent for them to actually move into that general direction.
Hello, I'm Vicar Jonah Davis. Pronouns are he, him, his. And I am the Children, Youth, and Family Director and LGBTQIA+ Coordinator at Union Lutheran Church here in York.
Hello, everybody. My name is Britney Brooks, and I am the Director of Community Engagement for Downtown York and York County Economic Alliance. My pronouns are she and her.
Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Joel Folkemer. I am the lead pastor at Union Lutheran Church, so I get the honor of working alongside Jonah, and it's our honor and privilege to be able to be part of this wonderful conversation. My pronouns are he and his.
Hi everyone, I'm Carla Christopher, and I am a cultural competency and diversity trainer who works with a lot of nonprofits here in this area, and I'm also a community outreach worker who does a lot of consulting with the Cultural Alliance specifically as what we call a cultural navigator. So I partner with individuals in the community that are regular folks like you and I that are trying to find ways to bring creativity and their own artistic projects into fruition. And so I'm incredibly excited to be part of a grassroots and a community-centered theater experience, and also to support bringing some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion vocabulary and support into the conversation.
Hi, I'm Deirdre. I am the director choreographer of Spring Awakening. I work with DreamWrights as teaching artist, and I also work with Free Arts Group. And I'm really thoroughly excited to put this production on. It's one of my favorites. It covers a lot of topics that I think are really important to a lot of teens and adults. And so, yeah, I'm really excited.
And I'm going to actually bounce it right back to our director choreographer, because before you came on, I was saying how you and Gabe were so adamant about this title that before I could even ask if there were any shows you were interested in, you both in unison said Spring Awakening, which made it a no-brainer for our 25th anniversary season. So you spoke a little bit to it, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about bringing this show to fruition.
This show has always been really important to me, and my twin sister Gabrielle, who's also co-directing and co-choreographing. This has been one of our favorite shows. The music, and dance, those are really integral, and the pop music, rock music, that's high energy. But one of the things that's really important to me and her, but I can speak for myself, is the story and the message. A lot of the things that the story talks about and a lot of things that are in the show are things that teens, young adults struggle with today, and seeing that on stage and seeing themselves represented on stage is really important. Some of the really big themes about censorship and adults struggling to hand these young people these intense problems or tell them about these intense issues and things like that end up being a downfall for these teens in the show, especially because they don't have the information and they still are ending up having to live through it and struggle through. And so it just highlights really a lot of that misinformation that happens in our day-to-day life of struggling between the line of sheltering young teens and young adults from the hardships of the world, while also trying to keep them informed about all the difficulties and things like that. So that's something that really pushed me into the story, and really when I was a teen and I found the show, that made me really relate to it, is that finding that, one of the other things the show touches on is puberty and growing up, and mixing that with also you're dealing with more adult issues and finding that link between, am I still a kid, am I adult, where do I lie? And I think that's really what connected me to the story, and what I find connects a lot of young people to the story. And I've just been so lucky and grateful to have a cast full of people who are also connected and love this story. And I've been really thrilled to work with them.
I just spent a whole day over at York High School, and there was not one theme from this show or one storyline that wasn't shared to me with the kids that are going through it right now. So it is difficult for us parents who have younger children to think that our children are exposed to these things or these experiences at such a young age. But going to the mental health aspect of it, one of the facts I'll put out there first, and this is from the Adolescent Wellness Academy, they had a statistic of 50% of lifetime cases of mental illness begin at 14 years of age, which is a really striking thing. And I think that is a truth to a lot of experiences that happen to us in our teen years of they do shape us and mold us into the people that we have. And a lot of these things that help mold us into the people we are the institutions. And there's three major institutions that are represented in this show, being the parental institution, we have the church, and then we also have the school. And I'm going to bounce this to have Britney Brooks start us off with a history of being a resource officer and having such a close relationship with a lot of schools here in the York City School District. If you could talk a little bit about what are some of the conflicts young people are going through with schools, and how are some of those conflicts being resolved?
I worked for the past 7 years. I don't work there anymore. I just left in the end of January. However, I was the school resource officer over at William Penn Senior High School, or more affectionately known as York High. I wasn't just a cop though. I was like a mentor, a stand-in mom, like an auntie, Mama Brooks, for a lot of kids for a lot of years that still call on me for things. I think that kids, they deal with the same things that adults deal with. I think right now we are serving a generation of youth that are forced to enter very adult-like scenarios at an earlier and earlier age, whether that be because of parent absenteeism due to, incarceration, or mom working two jobs, or, they passed away, or whatever the case may be. So I think that, just honestly giving them a genuine listening ear and then helping them navigate those situations. I think that's honestly the best thing that you could possibly do, not just for youth, but for anybody. So, I mean, there is no like secret recipe because there's no one size fits all approach. But I believe really, truly being there for youth people, or young people, is the thing that's going to make all the difference in the world, because you get a lot of buy-in once they realize that you're genuinely interested in the things that interest them or the things that concern them. You're genuinely interested in helping them navigate whatever those issues are, and they gain a lot of respect for you when they realize that you're interested, not because you have something to gain or they have anything, they don't feel like they owe you anything at the end of this, you know what I mean? But because you want nothing but the best for them, if that makes sense. So that's the short of it all for me, and it's the thing that I continue to do. I believe that that's what God's call is for my life, regardless of whether I work as a school resource officer or whether I work as, the director of community engagement over where I am now. The call on my life doesn't stop just because my occupation does. So that's what I'm here to do until ...
Well, I pretty much agree very much with what Brittany is sharing as far as, and COVID actually caused it to kind of exacerbate a little bit as far as the disinterest. As I see a lot of youth that are kind of disinterested in schools. A lot of that comes from what they have to kind of deal with at home. I know we're working at trying to rebuild kind of our relationship that we have with the parents. There's a lot of apparent absenteeism that we're noticing from pretty much the young people that come to our program come within maybe like a 4 or 5 block radius that actually comes. They walk into our actual premises for the after school program, and so the crop of students that we have now are different from the crop that we had before. Back in the days, we had very strong parental support for programming. So I'm working with now the young people that's in the area now to bring that out. But definitely that parent absenteeism. Children have a lot of different responsibilities to do, and they come in quite hungry. They just being there and applying like the nutritional aspect and things of that nature. And as far as with the schools, it's just to get them focused on a lot, and plus there was a lot of learning loss that was attributed because of COVID transferring into technologies that they necessarily wasn't aware of, and then the parents didn't have those technologies as well. So that's exactly what I've am instilling with my enthusiasm is to make sure that they're interested in their education and kind of give them that sight. But it's kind of lacking with the youth clients that we see right now.
Another resource for many people is what happens on the weekends. Yes, so we do have our church doors opening on the weekends. So I know a lot is happening with your congregation and the way that you're engaging in different ways in different communities. So can you talk, Pastor Joel, about a little bit what's happening at the Union?
We try very hard now, and we're trying to regrow a lot of those ministries, opportunities, whether it's supporting people with free clothing, food pantries, opportunities for groups, people to meet in the building, feeding programs, do breakfast and things like that. We're launching and growing our ability to do things with youth in the community, and especially around the LGBTQIA plus community. I don't want to steal Vicar Jonah's thunder on a lot of that, so I want to leave the opportunity for him to speak. But we truly try to be a congregation that celebrates the diversity that community is, doesn't shy away from real life things. We're going to talk about the hard stuff. We're going to wrestle with the hard stuff and recognize what's happening, in our community around us, in our country, and in the world. So we strive to be community focused. We strive to be inclusive and celebrate, the many wonderful people that are around us.
This was one of the youngest homosexual scenes that ever happened on Broadway. So it was really a eye-opening thing for that to happen in Spring Awakening. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing with that community, with your congregation.
Yeah, so youth struggling with their identities, trying to claim their space as who they are, independent from their families, their lives, outlook on careers. And one of the biggest struggles for many people are dealing with sexual orientation and gender. And so at Union, we have a diverse spread of membership, and two aspects that we're currently looking at is building an LGBTQIA plus community club at Martin Library in partnership. So every first and third Thursday from 4 to 5:30, we will be having a club starting in June. To kind of wrestle with what it means to be yourself, what it means to be empowered to be yourself, and what that looks like moving forward. And of course, I just have to let you know that we're also having a Pride dance for LGBTQIA plus high schoolers on June 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. right at Union.
And one of the things that I'm proudest about in this production, and I do praise the production team for being able to assemble a very diverse gendered cast, which I think is really important for the show. And wanted to have Deirdre talk a little bit about that and working with the young people with these very sexually charged material.
When working on the show, I think one of the things that's very obvious, and spoiler alert for the show, I know we already discussed that, the end of Act 1 on the original Broadway production and in the script, the end of Act 1 ends with a sex scene on stage. And so going into the show, that has been always something that's been on the forefront of my mind. When everybody thinks of Spring Awakening, a lot of the initial backlash to the show was absolutely that scene. And there's a lot of exploring sexuality in the show. And so that scene especially was something that was in the forefront of my mind when thinking about directing and blocking it. And there's been I have a lot of good mentors about intimacy training and a lot of really strong visions about how I want that and similar things to unfold, and how I can, one thing that's been really important for both me and Gabe is portraying the story while knowing that we want it to be in a way that is a little bit more palatable, for lack of a better word, for a lot more people, to bring the show and the story to a lot more people. So one thing that we've done is slightly changed blocking and slightly changed movements so that the emotional aspect of the scene is still there without having the kind of grittier feeling of like the shock of seeing it. So one thing that we've put in is we have a movement motif that kind of ends up becoming intimacy, whether it is physical intimacy or just emotional intimacy. We have a lot of like really emotional songs about like feeling blue or feeling sad and trying to be in touch with that in yourself. And that's when that kind of movement comes out. And that's one thing that we've really liked developing in the show with the cast, is finding that movement motif of what intimacy means, whether that's physical or emotional. And we've done a lot of like intimacy work. I have a lot of really great mentors on intimacy work. I've done a lot more research on it for the show. Lots of emails, lots of phone calls to try to keep that space as safe and as healthy as possible, even without like the sexual aspects of the show. Having a character who is struggling with mental health and suicide and eventually takes their own life, that is something really difficult. One thing that both Gabe and I thoroughly believe in is that no matter your acting style, background training, no matter how far you separate yourself from your character, a bit of you ends up living it no matter what. And it's been really important to us to keep the space safe for those actors who are having to, in some way, some part of their person live through these experiences. So that's been something that I've been really proud of. I'm really proud of the cast for kind of pushing that safe space and keeping that healthy environment throughout everything they've been doing. So that's been something I'm really proud of.
This piece dates all the way back to a German play that was banned because it was dealing with these exact same issues. So it's really timeless in turn of the century Germany. And now we have them here in York City dancing on our stage. But I think one of the more important things about a piece of work like this, and I'll also reference the I'm Fine exhibition, the I'm Fine project that will be in our gallery, is that the arts just seem to be such a healthy way to be able to process some of these high-stake emotions and traumatic situations. And I would like to go to our poet on our panel and talk a little bit about the importance of being able to find words and being able to express yourself in a positive way. And I would argue that Spring Awakening is such a poetic piece, both with the music and the actual scenes, that I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit on that, Carla.
So aside from working now in diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm also York's former poet laureate. And I'm not just a poet myself, but also a poet educator. So I've worked in York City School District. I've worked in a lot of our other schools, including with the Youth Build program out of Crispus Attucks, and working with the library system, specifically helping young people process trauma through creative expression. And that's something that ties in very directly with the exhibit that's going to be at DreamWrights during this show, that these are not just young people and community members creating works of art. They're actually making masks that depict all of the emotions that we carry inside us and reminding us that we have to put on that business face, right? That front face. And I think one of the prime themes that reaches out to me from Spring Awakening is that these are young people who are being told that their future is on the line. They're being constantly evaluated based on their performance in school, their performance socially. It's not just how do you perform on a number grid. It's how do you perform in community and society? Are you able to seem normal and respectable and follow all of the rules? But no one explains how those rules work to you. And so, you're constantly trying to find yourself, but find yourself in a way that there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. And I think that's what makes this so timeless. And if you're not given the vocabulary, then how do you even name who you are, what you are? And so when working with students, the things they really resonated with was being able to just say, hey, you know what? This is my identity. This may even change. I'm not sure if this is how I'm going to end up, but to be able to say, maybe I'm gay, but maybe I'm bisexual, maybe I'm pansexual, maybe I'm just experimenting and trying to find myself in a fluid world, and to be able to try on names, be able to try on styles of dress, be able to try on styles of expression. It's easy to say, oh, well, that's being a teen, when we have purple hair one day and green hair the next. But that's part of finding yourself and growing up. And when we say, well, I might want to be sexually active, but then I might decide I don't want to be. And when it comes to tougher questions about consent, when it comes to questions about identity or orientation, when it comes to what kind of career do I want, where does my loyalty lie with my family, with my school, with my neighborhood, with my own call to live my own life, with the religion that I'm brought up with? We don't give youth that same grace. And so in our journals, in our poems, in our artwork, in our songs and dance, that's one of the few places that I think has been historically and still is today a safe place for youth to experiment. And just like Deirdre was saying, that you can't be in a play without living some of that character, we also get that opportunity when we watch the play, that we get to be that person. We get to identify with that person. And so some of our emotions have a place to go. Some of our stories, when we read those books, we get to be those characters. And what we can't process with ourselves, we can process through them. And so when we have the chance to write, when we have the chance to perform, but when we also have the chance just to watch and consume, we get to try on those other identities and see what feels right for us, what resonates and what doesn't. And our young people have needed that since we didn't tell them how sex actually works, but they need that now when they're still not sure. How does intimacy and relationship work in a time of COVID? How does God work in a time of deconstructed religion? How does family loyalty work in a time of a lot of broken or fractured families? We're still asking these questions of how does all this work? And I think the arts is what gives us the space for young people still learning that vocabulary to process that.
Carla was mentioning all of those pressures, and those pressures actually seem amplified with social media now because you have a record of all of these changes and decisions and what you're going through. And also anyone and everyone can make comments on those and really throw stones. And unfortunately and tragically, some of our younger people end up deciding to conclude their life. One of the statistics, again, from the Adolescents Wellness Academy said that between 2018 and 2017, the suicide rate among teens 18 to 19 increased by 56%. This isn't even including COVID, which had so much isolating effect and so many things that we are just finding out about in research. So grief is a very palpable thing. Here in New York City, again, talking with many of the young people over at York High, touched by gun violence, but there's also self-inflicted gun violence. So I'd like to hear who would ever like to talk a little bit about how your organizations and what the work is touching upon the grief of our young people and what are some of the resources that they have out there.
So one of the things that I have been really excited to be a part of is that I'm one of the co-founders of the Rainbow Rose Center. And I know Vicar Jonah is also on that board as well, which is York County's only LGBTQ specifically serving organization. But Martin Library also has a wonderful teen center that has an LGBTQ group that works through that and does a lot of LGBTQ safe space programming. There's also an excellent diversity department that does LGBTQ work with both youth and adults in the Jewish Community Center. And there is also a lot of LGBTQ work that is happening in the different high schools across the county that have GSAs. So, and then additionally, out of Planned Parenthood, there is a group called The Curve, which is specifically for LGBTQ teens. And I think it's really important for all of our youth to have that space to just process identity, to be able to connect with adults who have been through this journey, who may have some advice, who may be able to just offer a non-judgmental listening ear. And it is hard for parents to release the idea of who their young person is in their head. And so as much as we want to place this on parents and say you should be the safe place for your child to process their questions about sex and identity and mental health, it's okay if you are not that person. It would be great, and you should be, I think, the first person that your child comes to. But then part of being a parent or being a leader and an adult mentor is knowing that it's not just okay, but healthy to create a web of support around young people.
About 3 years ago, we actually, the charter school actually had an individual that actually took their own life. So when I hear that about the suicide rate, it really kind of kick-started here at the Crispus Attucks, whereas about 3 years ago, certain staff individuals actually went through mental health training. And it kind of opened my eyes up, honestly. Like I said, my base has been science, technology, and math, and things of that nature. So I was very, very fortunate to actually go through that program as well as Ruby Martin there with the YWCA, the Duke University, brought a lot of these different concepts to my mind. And so in noticing these different type of pressures that the young people are actually experiencing, what we have done here at the Crispus Attucks is to focus more on emotional intelligence. We have quite a few of our young participants are young boys between the ages of, I would say, 7 to 13, and they're dealing with these pressures, which is very, very intense. So what we try to focus on, just trying to get the conversation kind of going. We actually have safe space conversations where that with the sheriff program as well. So what this does, with the sheriffs actually will come out and we would close the curtains. We would have that little safe conversation. Helps build the rapport between the young people and the law enforcement to the young people as well. So it bridges that gap and it gives them an opportunity to actually express some of this. Because when I'm picking up these young people in this immediate area, they have no one else to kind of express this information to. So I've been really focused on, I've been here at Crispus actually the past 5 years. So the last 2-3 years have been focused on more emotional intelligence, mindfulness, breath work, just bringing out the mats. We have a large projector and we actually start focusing on doing some yoga. Now these are concepts that young people, they never had any type of experience with at all. So this is just a brief like kind of introduction to for them to slowly start to really kind of focus on what's going on inside of them and kind of bring all that information out. Because I definitely can see all the different pressures from schools and the sexual orientation. These are different things that need to be expressed. So we're doing our part. Like I said, I'm learning as well. So I kind of lead through my learning and we kind of bring all these conversations about. So this is something very, very timely.
One of the things that, I try to do and others, in the church community has struggled with over the past has been that we don't speak up, especially if we're afraid we might upset somebody. We follow this false kind of flag of unity to the point of where we're just perpetuating the status quo. And if it means that you are part of the marginalized groups, then you're going to stay that way because we don't want to upset anybody that's in the power, it's in the leadership, whatever it might be. Over the past, number of years, as I've grown myself, I had the opportunity of many wonderful people in my life, with Carla being one of them, to help support and help me learn in those areas. It is important for us to really speak up and speak out when we truly believe things. And that's something that we try to do very much, just to make it known that we're there to be inclusive and supportive. It's important to take a stand, especially for those who are traditionally marginalized. For someone like myself, to use the privileges that I do have in order to, try to be an ally the best that I can be. And I think it's important for us, as we are able to share these messages and connect people with resources and opportunities around them, also to make sure that they know that they're cared for. A lot of these kids or people in general that are typically pushed aside, can feel that nobody cares, nobody wants them. We deal with suicide in the play, in the musical, and all around us. We deal with a lot of people in the homeless population, a lot of people struggling with different mental health issues here at the church. And just having conversations with people and listening to them and, giving them the time of day, saying, yes, I think you're a human being too, and I'm going to treat you like one. And just making sure that we continue to be that presence for people. We have a child in our congregation who has had to wrestle with her identity and sexual identity and things like that. And to hear from the family that their church is one of their biggest support groups is something you probably don't hear very often when it comes to these things. And so, it's something that you're going to upset certain people. You're going to push some people away, but maybe those are the right people to push away, because we need to be the voice for those who need that help, that allyship, and we hope to be those things.
Talking about grief and suicide, I think about the empathy it takes to have those relational conversations, and how, at least in my experience as a suicide attempt survivor, that impacts the way in which I do ministry, that impacts the way in which I hold faith formation classes for youth. And at Union, we dive into those tough conversations. We don't shy away from them. You know, we sit in a group of teenagers and we talk about the hard things at school, the violence at school, the trauma, the grief, because we can't shy away from it. We need to be talking about it as a church, as a community, as society. Because that gives empowerment and that gives us space to grow beyond and to wrestle and struggle with it in a way that's healthy.
And then one of the most tragic storylines in this show, which is having a shocking revelation, it's very poignant right now, is with the what seems to be the eventual overturning of Roe versus Wade. There is a botched back alley abortion that happens in the show. And talking about difficult subject matters, this is one of the most polarizing things in our country, is dealing with the abortion issue. With the Pew Charitable Trust research, some of the rates on teen pregnancy have gone down. In 2018, the birth rate between 15 to 19-year-old girls was less than half than it was in 2008. But that same study also showed us that Hispanic and Black teens from 15 to 19-year-olds were almost double the amount of rate than white teens to be pregnant during that time. Or does anyone wish to address how our young people can be able to navigate through that?
I know one of the most significant struggles in this show is about how do we have conversations around sexuality. And I think that's because it's one of the few things we don't have community safe spaces designated for, where youth can ask these questions, right? We have lots of places where we can talk about difficulties with school, where we can talk about difficulties with what kind of career you might be interested in. We have support groups for mental health. We have conversations and therapists that are available, and social workers that are part of schools and libraries. But if a teenager is not sure about safer sex or intimacy, there's still so much stigma around that. And I will say that, having worked in multiple schools, that teen pregnancy is certainly an issue, but so is consent and abuse. Just making the decision of when to have sex and what sex means and how it affects you emotionally and psychologically. And a lot of these young people are being exposed to sex through abuse, molestation, or unwanted touch before parents think that it's necessary to have the conversation with them. They're observing things on television and, or hearing from them. In York City, for example, our middle schools and elementary schools are combined in a lot of spaces. And so young people are exposed to a lot of knowledge that their parents may think they're not hearing on the playgrounds or in school restrooms, but they are.
In the show opens with one of our main characters who asks her mom, she's like, "Mom, you can't imagine that I still believe in the stork." And she's like, well, how does my sister have babies? Like, she's an aunt for a second time. And the mother in that scene struggles with sharing that information and finding a way, I think, to share that information that the mother's comfortable with. It's a very interesting scene because this young girl is asking these questions because she knows she's missing information while the mother is struggling with it. And it's an interesting dichotomy, because when we think about having these difficult conversations, we think that the young people, the teens, the young adults will struggle to understand and the parents know. When in actuality, it's the adults in the situations who are uncomfortable having these conversations. And I think that's where one of the things in the show that we really touch on is, I think adults and, I need to continue to learn in those spaces and need to continue to be open to that. As young people, it's difficult because it's like you see the adults who have everything figured out, and it's difficult navigating those places and those spaces. And I think as the show progresses, that's what, in a show it's adults learn half of their things from their own parents. And that's something we touch on, is that generational trauma of that. How do we stop that cycle of, well, my parents didn't tell me things, I did it on my own, so I can do this, and this child can do this, and continuing that, and being someone to stop that cycle and stop that pattern. And I think, like, ultimately, I think it's that information, just dealing with that uncomfortable place and sitting in that uncomfortable place.
Yes, and sitting in those uncomfortable places is how we learn, right? If we're always sitting in a comfortable space, we're not really seeing other things. We're just seeing more of what we want to see. And we hope many people will come out and join us to be able to witness this show. We, again, will be having opening this up to our teens, and that will be on June 8th. And then we'll all be reconvening on June the 25th. That's a Saturday performance at 7 p.m. And we will be concluding that performance with another talk back, engaging with you, our patrons out there, and the questions that you may have, and to our panelists and about this show at large.
We have here at the Crispus Attucks Rising Stars program will be our 6-week STEAM, our annual 6-week STEAM summer camp. It's an opportunity for 7 to 12-year-olds to actually come to the summer camp. It gives us 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and teach them a myriad of STEM and art, STEAM-related opportunities as well, field trips, kind of give the young people something to do. We have a scholarship program. Anyone that's interested, they can sign up as well. Knock a couple bucks off of that. We try to make everything real convenient for everybody, get their child interested. And anyone who's 13, 14 years or up, we have summer opportunities as well, summer employment opportunities with our employment and training department as well. And so you can definitely get in contact with me. I'm pretty sure we're going to have I don't know if you're going to have the information, email address and phone numbers and things of that nature kind of posted along with this video as well. So you can definitely get in contact with me regarding those ideas.
Just jump in with one more announcement. I know I mentioned the Pride Dance in the library group earlier, but for our younger group, for people that have completed 4th through 8th grade, we will be having a day camp at Union from June 20th to 24th. It'll run from 9:30 to 3. It's limited in space, so we would just encourage early registration.
We have auditions for Alienate June 17th and 18th, which is another fabulous show dealing with teens in many of these same exact subject matters that's happening in a fabulous new musical about being human that will be on our stage in September, and that is directed by Manny Talato, who will be at the helm of that production. So we're very excited to be doing that. So that's one thing that you can audition for this summer.
Well, I will absolutely be at our host of Pride events that are happening throughout the county. So I very much encourage you to join all of us at Pride, York County Pride, which is York County's first official Pride, rather than it being a quality fest. And so that will be happening at Counselor Park in York on June 11th. At 10 a.m.
Come visit us. We'll be at Pride Night at the Revs. We'll have a table there with kids' activities. We'll be at the Pride on their Castle Park, the York Pride event. We'll be there at the Weco Creek Fire. July 9th, the Creek Fires are back in the west end of town, so we're very excited about that. We'll be there doing kids stuff with them. That's a great family-friendly opportunity for kids to come out there.
I think there's a lot of reasons to come and see Spring Awakening. I think it's a fantastic, I really cannot shout out the actors and creatives involved. Our cast is incredible. They are great vocalists, great dancers, great movers, great actors, but most and of all, they're great storytellers, really amazing. And I think you should come out and see them and support them. It's
really a wonderful thing for us to be able to share with the York community. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us. Again, Spring Awakening will be running June 17th through the 26th. So please get your tickets now before they sell out. We only have Sunday matinees, no Saturday matinees, so we go Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 3. You do not want to miss this. And then also we open every show 1 hour before showtime for our art exhibition. Again, that is the I'm Fine project. And then also our teen sharing stage, which will be a half-hour set before every single performance of Spring Awakening in our Rutter's Concessions Gallery. So we have our upcoming conversations continuing this community conversation series again on June 8th. We'll be at the Bonnie B. Grimes Gym at 1 p.m. And we will have all of that information up on our social media platform. So check it out. And then we will have everybody hopefully coming back and seeing us after the show on the 25th. Again, thank you so much for being part of the community conversation. I am Gregory DeCandia, Artistic Director of DreamWrights Center for Community Arts. And until next time, we hope to see you at DreamWrights.